Andrea here with me is also one of the contributors of the CitSciComp, and Muki, where we've been collaborating together to create this. So I'm happy to. You'll hear from the three of us today during the presentation. Andrea will mostly speak about the surveys that we have been developing. Is the final stage of this competency framework, and Muki is just gonna jump in or at any moment when he wants to add something. And all of you feel free to ask questions whenever you have any. We're recording this session because we haven't been recording them, but I think they're useful if we want to kind of share a bit more broadly what is the Citizen Science Competency Framework and how it has been created. So we'll focus on the first hour of the session on the why and the how and the surveys, and then we'll have a 30-minute moment for any kind of questions around the survey, as they're quite dense and complex, let's say. So we'd be happy to answer for any questions there. So maybe I can briefly introduce myself, but my name is Cléa Montanari. I work on this European project called European Citizen Science, and I'm based in Paris, part of Université Paris-Cité. And then there's Andrea. If you'd like to present yourself.
Hi everyone, I am also part of the Citizen Science team with Cléa, Muki, Lyuba, who might be here as well, and Sahara, who is working on another research project. I've been working on competency framework development for the last 15 years, but from a different perspective, basically. I've worked more for UNESCO, different ministries, and so on. So this competency framework has been done with having in mind with many of the don'ts or how it could have been done better actually and more participatorily with the community. And yeah, I'm doing my PhD on this, and I've worked previously, yes, in education, AI in education, digital education, as well as fair data management as well, and data analysts.
Muki, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Muki Haklay, here from Université Paris-Cité and the Learning Planet Institute, where I'm taking part in the European Citizen Science Project and the European Citizen Science Academy, and therefore contributing to the CitSciComp as part of organizing the information there.
It would have been great to do a whole round of introduction, but we won't have time for that. So if you just want to introduce yourself in the chat, please go for it, and would be happy then to read it to see where you're coming from. So welcome to our dive-in session into the competency framework. Let me just go back. So as mentioned before, we're going to tell you about, brief preparation for your contribution to the survey, if you'd like. Ideally, before we were organizing these dive-in sessions to help people engage with the survey, because we know it's dense and it's a lot of information. So we wanted to kind of give an introductory round so that it's a bit easier to get into them. But we'll also, I believe, hear more so in the session, just explain to you how it was created, the process of creating it, and how to read it as well. And also in relation to the ResearchComp, which is the competency for researchers developed by the European Union. So would you like to go over this, Andrea? Or yeah.
Yes, so we will see a bit more later, but we just launched these three last questionnaires, this final round. We will tell you a bit more about the process, but the CitSciComp is not over yet, and we were hoping you could also contribute to this last part of it, even though, for example, some of you have already contributed to the first phase. It would be great to have your say on this too. So there are three questionnaires. you're not obliged to answer to the three questionnaires. This depends on your time available and also the nature of the contributions that you might have after having read the CitSciComp. The first questionnaire is about clarity and usability. Finally, we added more fundamental questions and deep questions, so the times have been changed. Basically, now it's between 15 and 20 minutes, but it goes straightforward to whether it is clear how to make it, how to ease its implementation also in your research or teaching contexts, and what supporting material you might need. The second questionnaire is in case you have any further contribution regarding to any of the competencies and so on, please go to this questionnaire. We go competency by competency in case you have any comment. You can also attach if you have, for example, existing material that you would like maybe to index it later on for the learning paths. This is the questionnaire. It takes from 20 to 25 minutes. We often say first go through the CitSciComp, so this time, takes this into account. And the third questionnaire, it's more about having a common ontology, a common foundation in terms of definitions, a common taxonomy basically, and a bit more questions about priorities on data visualization with some preliminary data that we have already.
Thank you. So, and then Andrea will go a bit more into detail, but these are the questionnaires that have been launched, and you have until the 18th of May to answer them. But so now let's go a bit more into what is the competency framework. So it was created as a part of a collaborative initiative between the European Citizen Science Project and Pattern, which is also an EU-funded project on which Andrea is working on. And at ECS, they're both taking an end in 2026. So what is a competency framework? Not sure to what extent you are familiar with a competency framework. So competency frameworks are frameworks that highlight skills, attitudes, knowledge, and values that can describe, characterize a certain profession, role, or training. It also describes the different levels of progression within its specific context, so either educational or professional. In our case, we developed a framework that describes skills, attitudes, knowledge, and values that characterize citizen science researchers and practitioners. Why we developed this competency framework? Well, within the European Citizen Science Project, Muki and I our responsibility and our role was to develop a European Citizen Science Academy, and within that work package or those tasks, we needed to create actually learning paths for newcomers in the field of citizen science, and for them to want, and ideally to kind of help them then contribute and gain in capacity and in knowledge, skills, etc., to contribute to high policy goals like the Sustainable Development Goals and the Green Deal. So we didn't know where to start, let's say, to create this learning path. And this is where Muki kind of had the idea, well, we need to build a competency framework. And this is where Andrea came, as she's doing a PhD on competency frameworks. So it's been now a year or so that we've been co-creating this process with 160 other people from the community. And so this is what I'll be explaining. And at the same time, this competency framework could serve a role to the European Citizen Science Academy by helping with understanding what are training gaps, what are training needs, and potentially also lead to certification of trainings. So I just went over this, but it does have some impact in relation to the field, in relation to its professionalization to some extent, as we've developed with others, what are competencies that characterize the field at different professional levels. We hope that it guides the learning of citizen science. Again, the fact that we've created this with many others, we hope that it does has some solidity to it, and that's why it can guide the learning of citizen science, and also inform the delivery of training. So the process itself, we used what is called the Delphi method, which is a consensus-based approach. It originally comes from the medical field, but this time we tweaked it, let's say, because generally this method is mostly brings together experts from a certain field, asks them to develop a framework, and then afterwards, when the final results come, then this one is sent to a larger, broader community to get some feedback. But in this case, we adapted it, and then Andrea, if you have any questions around it, can give you more information about exactly how it's adapted from a traditional Delphi method. But the way we adapted it is that from the start, we actually sent out a survey, and we had some criteria on specific profiles for people to contribute, but there were a pool of panel members, and then there was a pool of reviewers, and then there was a pool of observers. So we had 3 different roles with different profiles, different criteria for each of these roles, and they contribute to the process differently. So panel members contributed during workshops. So these were online meetings, 2 hours online meetings, where we did different things in these workshops, but it was mostly to build up and to construct this framework. And then afterwards, surveys were created that in these surveys, there were the results of these workshops with panel members. And these surveys were sent to a pool of reviewers, which were the target audience, let's say, of this framework. So citizen science practitioners and researchers coming from different levels of knowledge of the field. So there were newcomers to the field, but there were also let's say, people that were very knowledgeable about citizen science, to represent a variety of knowledge levels, let's say, in citizen science. So the surveys were sent to this pool of audience or main stakeholders of the framework. That would give feedback to the results coming from panel member workshops, and then the results of the surveys or the responses of the surveys were analyzed and then given back were brought back to the workshops for panel members to review and understand what reviewers were saying about their results. And then there were also observers that were brought in. So observers were people that were invited to participate in this collaboration as people that were outside or working outside the European research area. We wanted to make this process accessible in the sense that anyone that wanted to understand how we were doing it could participate, but the fact that we wanted also to keep this framework relevant, let's say, to the European research area, as these were European projects and we work in Europe. So we didn't want to pretend that this competency framework was then relevant to the whole world of citizen science, let's say, but we focus on the European research area. So observers were there to observe the process. They did contribute at the end of the day, not much, but we did also include some of their contributions in the CitSciComp. But their main role was basically just if they were interested, they could come and observe, let's say, the process. So these were some of the selection criteria process to each of these roles. So as you see, panel members were people that had experience in citizen science and any of the following domains, which were science communication, public engagement, scientific research, citizen science, research project management, technology and data management, raise and manage funding, engaging in policy process, etc. And they were working within the European research area and also had a certain time availability, which was 2 of the following 3-hour workshops. So we were asking them to contribute to 2 of the workshops. Then we had reviewers who were potential or experienced citizen science researcher practitioner. So they didn't need to be experienced, but they needed to be interested at least in the field of becoming a citizen science researcher working or practitioner. They were working also within the European research area, and they had a time availability of about 20 minutes to respond to a survey. And then we had observers that were that had the same experience in citizen science as panel members, but that were working beyond the European research area, and that also had a certain time availability to participate to one of the workshops. Then, so we had these criteria, and then once we went over these criteria, we also wanted to make sure that we had a representation of countries. We also wanted to make sure we had a good representation of professions, and we based on professions that were underrepresented, which were like, for example, career counselors, representative of data repositories, librarian, data stewards, data engineering, and policy. So those were selection criteria once the main ones were fitting, let's say. And then also we took in consideration as a selection criteria sectors that were most underrepresented, like data management, public or research library, science network organizations, or working in a research funding body industry. That really helped us to make sure there was a big, let's say, diversity of participants contributing to our process, and also disciplines that were most underrepresented, which were, for example, formal science, engineering and mathematics, technological sciences, health sciences, and then we also considered minority groups, which were based on countries of origins, I believe mostly, and perhaps also sex or gender, and maybe another criteria, but I don't remember exactly which one. Andrea, could
Yes, one of the questions here was whether you consider yourself a minority in the country you're based in. So one of the things we took into account is that we are in a global, market, let's say, or a global research landscape. So there are many people from different world regions working within Europe, and so we asked this, and also the minorities within our own countries. Or European countries as well. And the second thing that we asked, it was about language also. If people spoke also a minority language, or if they didn't speak English as a first language as well. This was another of them.
thank you. So in total, the participants, we had 53 panel members from 18 different countries within the European research area. We had 43 observers from 11 sub-regions beyond European research area. And then 67 reviewers from 21 different European research area countries. Below you can see a bit of the profiles, so which professions they were coming from. So we had around 87 practitioners, 101 project managers, 115 educators, 46 policy officers, etc., and 95 people that identified as citizen scientists as well, and in total 154 researchers. And these are not mutually exclusive, so people could be more than one profile in their profession. So one person could be a practitioner as well as a project manager. So the way that we started building this competency framework, this came as an initiative because the research competency framework from the European Union was just also published. And within that research competency framework, also called ResearchComp, there is a mention of citizen science in one of their competency areas. And so we actually kind of mixed, we used ResearchComp as one of our biggest bases. So we extracted competencies that we thought were relevant to a citizen science researcher and a practitioner, but also mixed and matched with other competency frameworks. Like the framework Intercomp and also the framework for the EU policymaking competencies. And we then put this into a document and gave it to panel members to review it and to identify which competencies were relevant or not to citizen science researchers and practitioners. That was one of our workshop activity. So this is just again a repeat and with kind of specific dates of when this happened. So we had 2 workshops and then 1 survey round with the reviewers, another workshop, another survey round with reviewers. And that resulted in the first version of the CitSciComp, which we then also presented during the European Citizen Science Conference in Finland in March. And now also we are at a final stage, a final review stage of this first version with this round 3 survey, which will then result in the final version of the Citizen Science Competency Framework, or let's say we're closing this process then. So the competency framework, I think you all received it with the email I sent. So if you want to open it up as well, this version you can explore as I go through it. So it has first a glossary where we are giving key terms. You'll see that, for example, we've chosen to use the word participant instead of volunteer or citizen scientist. Just we were trying to make this as inclusive to the field as we can. As we know, there are many terms used for participant, volunteer, or even just the term citizen science. So, for example, we use the word participatory research and citizen science using a dash to highlight that this is a field for more participatory research, or the competency framework, let's say, that englobes more of the participatory research field. So a glossary is offered, and in the surveys, this is why we kind of are asking you a review there, because we want to get feedback from the community, although it had already been created with the community, but this is where you can give your feedback about what you think, how it should be designed. Then we have 7 competency areas, which are managing research, making an impact, self-management, cognitive ability. So you see these are the numbers you see around the wheel. And then there are competencies within each of these competency areas, and each of these competencies have different levels that go from foundational, intermediate, advanced, expert. And then there's sub-competencies that describe that competency. And then we have examples, scenarios, tools, and approaches. So it might be a bit confusing, but we'll go deeper into it. So again, what is competency framework? Well, it highlights skills, attitudes, knowledge, and values that can describe, characterize a certain profession. And in this case, it's a citizen science researcher and practitioner. These are the definitions we came up with in regard to what is knowledge, what is skills, what is attitudes, what are values. So the way that we went about this is that we gave some standard definitions of these aspects, and then we asked panel members and then reviewers to tweak these definitions to the citizen science context. So these are not just to let you know that these definitions were also reworked with the community to define this competency framework then. And you'll find them in the glossary. So these are the main competency areas: managing research, making an impact, self-management, cognitive abilities, work with others, managing research tools, doing research. And you'll see they're exactly the same as ResearchComp. And the small numbers below each of these competency areas are the competencies themselves. So making an impact includes participate in the publication process. It also includes disseminate results to the research community, etc. Then you'll find self-management that includes manage personal professional development, coping with uncertainty, ambiguity, and risk. And so this is how it's structured. Then if we zoom in one of the competency areas, you'll see, so this is 1.1 mobilized resource. It's a competency. And then that competency is actually looks like this. So you'll find its definition, which was worked. All of these were reworked with the community. So the definition, then you'll find the competency levels. So this competency is actually broken down into different levels called foundational, intermediate, advanced, expert. These levels are also defined in the glossary. And then these levels are described by sub-competencies. The sub-competencies that you see in italics are the ones that were not changed at all from ResearchComp, but the ones that are not in italics, which are most, have actually been changed or tweaked during our workshops, during the survey process by the community and adapted to the citizen science field, participatory research citizen science field. And so, for example, a sub-competency at so if you are at a foundational level, let's say, in mobilized resource as a competency, this means that you are aware of funding and non-funding sources of participatory research citizen science projects, and of the related application procedures. You are aware of in-kind resources that can be used. You can contribute to drafting research and funding proposals, and also contribute to identify research gap aligned with funder priorities. So it's these you can find yourself a little bit in these different levels. And one of the main things we mention is that it's not expected for for everyone to be at an expert or advanced level in each of the competencies. It really varies with your profile, and this does not mean that you are more legitimate or less, let's say, in the field. Then these are examples, just to provide a little bit more content to the subcompetencies, more context, let's say more meat, as we say. So it can help you understand what is meant by the subcompetencies. And these were also added by the panel members or reviewers. So these are the definitions of foundational, intermediate, advanced, and expert. And just to tell you that these all the competencies are broken down this way. So yeah, these are the definitions of different learning levels. So there's foundational, which is having some understanding of the issue to the level that the person can take part in activities under the supervision and guidance of more experienced people. Then there's intermediate, is a stage of developing independence and abilities to run activities competently. Advanced, developing specialist skills and can run complex and or multiple projects. An expert, someone who is particularly specializing in a specific subdomain and has high-level expertise that can shape and progress the domain. So again, the disclosure, it is expected that only few people will be expert in any given domain. Moreover, due to natural limitation, it is expected that an expert in a given area of participatory research citizen science will have only foundational knowledge in other domains. For example, an expert in participatory research citizen science data management might have only foundational knowledge in public engagements. So you see there's a kind of a mix and match of competencies for one given profile. During the European Citizen Science Association conference, we actually had a whole workshop on this, and it was a bit, Andrea created a card game for people to look at the different sets of competencies with their different foundationals, advanced expert levels, and people could let's say, score where they were in their level, the different so they could identify, all right, I'm at foundational in this competency, I am more intermediate in that competency, so you can kind of assess your different levels, and then it's a way for you to understand, well, do I want to progress in that competency or not, depending on what you need. So how to read this in relation to ResearchComp. If you're not familiar, well, the ResearchComp represents a framework that is then expected for researchers from different European countries to assess themselves by. So this is coming from the European Union. They have identified these competencies and they're expecting researchers to kind of have these sets of competencies. And so it's also a framework for universities to take on to say, okay, we need to train our researchers to have these sets of competencies based on the European Union competency framework. So the CitSciComp is not there yet. It's not a framework given by the European Commission that everyone has to follow, but it really comes from the community and might be taken up by then the European Union. But we just wanted to showcase to you how the two can be compared. Muki, go for it.
Yes, so just also something that I've analyzed 2 days ago, and it's worth pointing out, is that when you compare ResearchComp to CitSciComp, you see, so in ResearchComp, there are 39 competencies. So those are the sublines under the different areas, what you see there, of which 23 or 24 were taken to CitSciComp, and then we added another 10 or 15 to CitSciComp from the other places, as Cléa mentioned earlier. So there are differences between ResearchComp and CitSciComp, and it's kind of different in different areas. So the two areas where we made most of the changes are in making an impact and in the doing research.
Yeah. So the way you can go about reading it is, for example, as you see, the competency areas in ResearchComp are not numbered, but ours are numbered. So we started with managing research and we numbered it number 1. And so ours is number 1. And then making an impact. And then afterwards, if you see ResearchComp under managing research, so in the middle of the screen, you see that mobilize resources is number 1. So we actually took this number 1 and added it to 1.1 to represent. So mobilize resources is number 1 in ResearchComp. Then since our managing research became number 1, we've added 1.1. So you can read it that way. So this is just to briefly show you. So managing research was number 1, making an impact number 2, and became 2 in ours. Self-management 3 is 3 in ours, and 4, etc. So each are numbered this way. Then if you zoom in, as Muki mentioned, you'll see that we have 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, etc. In ResearchComp, it stops at 7, and we have 8 and 9. And so here, this means that these competencies are coming from other frameworks. So not ResearchComp, but other frameworks, such as the Public Engagement Framework or the Competency Framework for Policy. We don't explicitly mention where they're coming from right now in the version, but maybe that's for us to do. We could make a footnote saying this competency actually comes from this framework and not ResearchComp.
Yeah, it will appear in the accompanied paper. So there will be a detailed notes about it, and then within this paper, you'll have not just only the detail about where it came from, but also what changes we have made to the competency and sub-competencies that came from ResearchComp. Barbara, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks a lot for his presentations. Just out of curiosity, but so there is no unique competence that you would have added from scratch. So either they come from the ResearchComp or they come from other ones. Is that correct? So there was no unique new one created.
We gave the option of creating a new one, but in the end, it wasn't taken up by the panel. It was actually rolled into other things. One of the reasons that we've done that was to ensure the interoperability of CitSciComp with other European framework. So by saying, say, ResearchComp is already accepted and been tested, for example, against the general European competencies and skills, and also that it's got clear guidance on how to integrate it. So the best thing that we can do is build on that and expand on it so it can be mapped into existing competencies, and then it will be easier to absorb it and to use it for different purposes. So that was the general approach, and we've done it from the start, but we borrowed widely from different competencies. So you'll have the things coming from the entrepreneurial competency framework, or from one that really contributed a lot was actually a JRC framework for policy officers, for policy actors, on how they can integrate, for example, public engagement and other things. And there were really good stuff there that was relevant to integrate.
Thanks for your question, Barbara. One of the most contentious competency to some extent was 6.2, which is promote citizen science and ResearchComp. people read it differently. As a citizen science researcher and practitioner, when you see all the other competencies focused on citizen science, this one became a bit confusing because in ResearchComp, it's mostly about citizen science. But in this competency, it didn't really make sense that it was just about citizen science because all the other competencies are about citizen science. So when people read it was more about, well, promoting it. So the different kind of competencies and being able to promote citizen science. And so we had a bit of difficulty with this because we were thinking, should we just remove it because it doesn't make sense, or should we completely adapt this competency? At the end, I think it might be in the survey. I'm not sure, but yes, it's in the survey to review and to ask you what you think should be the focus of this competency. Should it be about promoting it, or should it stay a bit more like it is currently in ResearchComp? That might be like a whole new competency, let's say, even though it might keep the title from ResearchComp. I'm not able to see the chat, so if anyone, not sure if there's any questions. No, it's all good. Okay.
All good. Yep.
Now we'll move into the survey section. So if you have any questions about this competency framework and how we developed it, please go for it. And if not, then let's move into the survey in the final round of contribution.
Yes, so as I said before, this is not over yet. This is not the final version, and we would like, some more feedback to finalize this work and provide, the final version of this competency framework. Next slide. So as you see, we are in the final round, in the round 3, and we seek for the community feedback, and we've structured, next slide, these different 3 questionnaires. Okay, let's go to the first one. So first of all, there is a registration to this questionnaire and some profiling questions. So you just have to add your email address, and if you want also your first name and last name. Once again, all this data will be anonymized at the end. Your personal information will be saved with a password and will not be released. We will anonymize the data as well. This takes long, but we will do it the best we can, ensuring the privacy of your data. And you just send this information and you will receive an email in your inbox. Please check your spam in case you have not received it, and you will have it there. In any case, don't hesitate to contact me and Cléa as well, so we could help you. Then you will have some profiling questions. If you've already participated in the first phase as reviewer, observer, or panelist, you just select in the first question of the questionnaire that you have already participated as such, and you don't have to provide all this data. The same if you, for example, decided to respond not just to one question but to 2 questionnaires, there you need to provide this data again. But the first thing we ask, next slide, here it's about your country or countries of affiliation, a bit about your professional experience, about your sector, your educational background, disciplines, fields, areas, and so on. This will allow us also to disaggregate the information and to know also the different perspectives within these competencies as well. Next slide. And now let's go and take a look at the first questionnaire. Once again, you don't have to answer to the 3 of them. You can choose 1, 2, or the 3 of them. We will be eternally thankful for your contribution, whichever it is. And thank you so much, Jackie. See you soon, and the video will be available also afterwards. So the first question will be about the clarity and usability. Our main questions here are whether the end users could understand and use this framework as it is, how to improve it to this end, whether it is ready for public release, pilot testing in educational context, integration into career development pathways, policy recommendations as well. Also, we ask about the coherence and logic, and of course about the implementation feasibility, including barriers for adoptions. This brings us to the next question, which is more about what supporting materials you might need. Now, the second questionnaire. So, as said, the first questionnaire will take you more or less about 15 to 20 minutes. It is important to go through also the CitSciComp itself beforehand. So you can also select your questionnaire, and it will ease also the answer of these questionnaires. The second questionnaire. So the second questionnaire, it's this final open consultation, the final validation by the community about these competencies. So we have had already 31 competencies validated with over 70% of consensus rate. It was set up based on previous also Delphi processes. So you can go through it and provide also your final answer. Only 5 competencies will need a final validation or a decision taken, as Cléa said, in promoting citizen science, for example, and there are other competencies that were still above 60%, most of them, but we still need over 70% of consensus. So this is the place. And there is a new competency. So there is a new competency added to ResearchComp that is leverage artificial intelligence. So if you work in this area, if your job also has been highly affected or impacted by this, do not hesitate to provide your opinion, your feedback, your input to this question. This will add an extra 10 to 15 minutes because we have to do the process again for this competency, but it is highly important also for not just the competency framework, but for its uses afterward. Finally, we ask a bit, about the overall architecture and whether there are any missing elements. There is a space also where you can index your resources for each competency, so do not hesitate to do so here. Now I will show you a bit more about this new competency in the next slides. Yes, Cléa.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight, so the leverage artificial intelligence competency came in ResearchComp at the end of our process. So we didn't have time, right, to go through the same process as we have gone through with the reviewers and the panel members. That's why, yeah, it has not been as tweaked as it has by everyone as the other competency. So this is where maybe we would need the most kind of help, because this is a new competency for us all to some extent.
Exactly. So let's gonna see, so this new competency will add some time to this questionnaire. One note that I forgot to say before: you can actually start the questionnaire, it will save your answers, and you can come back later. This is important. You can take the time you need to do it at your time, So this new competency has been added basically, as Cléa said, because it's a new addition. This was done during the process very recently, so we have added it because it's very important for the development of not just the CitSciComp, but citizen science itself. So this new competency has still these 4 shared learning paths and progressions and experiences, but with some differences. ResearchComp focuses on what AI is, how to select it, and how to govern its use. However, in the CitSciComp, we're focusing more in the participatory and participant-oriented process as part of citizen science and participatory research. There are 3 structural transformations that you will see. the CitSciComp reframes this competency for the specific processes within participatory research and citizen science. We center this competency more into participant-led science and not just output optimization as it is in, for example, in ResearchComp. It adds verification of AI applied to citizen-generated data. This might have, I mean, AI could have already risk of biases and representational exclusion, because we know that it depends on with data you have fed this AI as well. So we have added this into the competencies from this competency area, and it introduces AI as also a participation infrastructure, and the participation infrastructure concern, and how to use AI supporting citizens engagement. There are 11 new additions, 11 new, let's say, competencies proposed that can be differentiated into integrity and handling participant data. So we have added more about hallucination risks, the need of human verification and our accountability as well, representativity issues, the importance of disclosing AI use, participant contributions, and how this shouldn't be also displaced by AI outputs, about participation and infrastructure. So the importance about explaining AI to participants, the importance of building human AI workflows, preserving participant contributions agency, legal aspects, and environmental implications that haven't been added in the initial ResearchComp competency, in the GDPR, copyright of AI-generated content, and open licenses, privacy by designs for AI tools processing, and of course the environmental impact in terms of water and the emissions of CO2 as well, and of course a critical reflexivity. This has been added in the advanced and expert level. Interrogate AI narratives of efficiency and objectivity, and also the importance of working towards alternatives to this. Next slide. So once again, the second questionnaire has this important feedback, so feel free also to contribute here. And the third questionnaire, we often talk about the importance of having a common ontology, a common taxonomy, common definition. So even though Cléa showed you the definitions that were broad based on these 163 people, co-construction process, we still ask you here what you think about these definitions, about the definitions of knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values in citizen science and participatory research processes. Are these clear, complete, and appropriately scoped? These definitions, you will see, go deeper than the ones in the glossary, for example. Also, the learning levels. We haven't changed the name of the learning levels. We know also in ResearchComp, these have been in ongoing discussions since 2010 about these levels, but we still keep the standard levels. However, we can have a word to say on how these are scoped, how these are defined as well. So this is the place where you can do it. And then we have some questions about how to visualize these learning paths based on preliminary results. Next slide. So already, based on the phase 1 process, we have found out that there is a 91% of overlap between researchers and practitioners. Only 9% shows differences. There are no exclusive competencies to researchers or practitioners. But now the question is, should we differentiate this 9% of differences between these two roles? Because we know that although we have had around 60% of practitioners as part of the process, these were not practitioners only. These were practitioners and researchers, for example, or practitioners and data scientists. So here we ask a bit more about this question to, the bigger community, the greater community. Next slide. We can differentiate already these different competencies with it or with where there are differences. So based on these results, would it be useful to know and to have a view on how these competencies changed from practitioners and researchers? So here you will have more information about it, and here you can let us know whether this is pertinent on or not within this framework. The next slide. The second question goes into learning paths by type of citizen science and participatory research project. This has been brought from the first workshop, the importance of having this differentiation. We have seen from the data that there is actually a difference between, of the use of each competency within each type of citizen science project. So, for example, we saw that some competencies become progressively more important by type of citizen science project. For example, in contributory projects, you have more data collection focused competencies, task-oriented participation, and there is limited interaction with the community. However, then we see that in collaborative projects, this is more communication focused. There is a need for more team coordination and active interaction with the community. And then we have the co-created type of project in which this is more co-design focused, we have more shared decision making, and there is a deep partnership among the different stakeholders. So this suggests there are learning paths where practitioners can develop increasingly sophisticated skills as they engage more in participatory processes. So the question here is, should we also differentiate these learning paths? And will this be useful for the community? For example, this is a question that we ask in this questionnaire. Next slide. So in terms of questionnaires, this is all. If you have any question during the process and right now, do not hesitate to ask. But this work will be documented and shared also with the community. We will hand over, our work will be done here, but then the next steps will be further discussed within EXA and with the community as well. This is something that also Cléa is very fond to as well. So, but from our side, the methodology and protocols will be in OSF. There is an ongoing publication with the panelists, reviewers, and observers as co-authors. All the methodologies used in the data analysis will be available in GitHub, in the notebook as well. The data will be available and anonymized. We are doing the quality assurance of the first phase data right now, and it will be included in the publication. And based on your answers also, we would love to show this pilot of trajectories visualizations linked with the repository of the European Citizen Science Academy, the resources that you bring as well. So this data could be reusable as well. This process could be replicated, and you can of course match this competency framework to curricula. You can enlarge these learning paths. We have received many comments about, expanding this work to citizen scientists or participants, trainers and educators, policymakers, project managers, and it is interoperable with ESCO, as Muki sent you. ESCO is a huge repository and work on standardization of skills, competencies, and occupations. So our work will be directly, could be directly interconnected with this or any repository that you might have. So let us know what you need also from our side in the first questionnaire, and we can do our best actually to support this process after this competency framework is launched. So thank you so much. I think, yes, this is the last slide. We have still, I mean, more than 30 minutes for questions, discussions, and so on. So do not hesitate to tell us if you have any doubts. I haven't seen the comments either, Cléa, unfortunately. Do we have any questions?
No, there isn't questions so far.
But thank you for presenting yourself. I hope you had time to also read the comments. One thing perhaps about the governance of this competency framework. So it's the European Citizen Science Association, EXA, was our coordinator and manager of our project. So they will be taking it up alongside the academy that we've been shaping. But since this was created with the community and also by the community, we will have workshops to think about how we want this framework to be governed or to be operationalized, let's say, in terms of certification, in terms of thinking about a bit the negative and positive implications that this framework can have on the fields. We want to also engage the community to think about this and to think about how we want to govern it, let's say. It also means about for example, when do we want it to be updated? What will be the process of updating it in the future? Who will be? So these things we want to talk about it and decide a bit as well together. So we already have some dates set in July to have 2 workshops with the community around these government operationalization processes, and soon we will advertise these workshops in June. So if you're already following EXA on its different social media channels, you will hear about it. Otherwise, we could also send an email to everyone that has been contributing or in these dive-in sessions, but please do follow EXA so like this you can hear about it there. Yeah, Santiago.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think this is really, really interesting. I am even more sorry that I couldn't go to the conference, and I planned to do it, and then at the end some other event happened. So I'm really glad to look at these things. I'm sort of an outsider from this community. I very recently started contacting the European Citizen Science Association and had some conversations with them as we want to really build the expertise in our alliance. And it's like this is the perfect timing for doing that. So I'm really happy that I saw this presentation. So my question now is very specifically with what Muki put on the chat about so we have the ResearchComp, but we have also the research management comp. And very often, and kind of the reason of these research management comp is that, well, you can do as much as you can as a researcher, but then you need the support, the administrative support, and all the things that go behind the job that you do in order to facilitate that. You talked a lot about the competences from the research comp, but not too much on the research management comp. Is there, I know they're kind of very interlinked one to the other, but there are some specific skills on the RM comp. Did you consider that? Is it something that you want to further develop? What is the status there?
Okay, so I'll jump in and answer on that one. RMComp came after we already set out to work. It was happening while we were working on it, and it's actually quite different. It's got a public engagement within one part of it. So there is an element that research managers actually are now expected to, if they wish to, they can develop the skill of public engagement. It's not at the same level as ResearchComp. And we deliberately based ourselves on ResearchComp because the audience that the European Citizen Science Academy is addressing is mostly the researchers. There is a growing interest from research managers, but they probably need to have a more introductory skill. RMComp, for example, is lacking in expecting research managers to know science communication, which is an interesting thing also that the Commission is aware of. So specifically for that, with the RMComp, with the Research Manager Competency Framework, there is already already in train the development of the academy for training and even accreditation of research managers at different scales. So we are in conversation with IARMA, but how that will be integrated and how the relation will evolve, that's yet to be seen. And also our competency framework in the landscape of competency framework at the moment is a bit odd because it's bottom up. We actually came up with an initiative to do that, and then we made an effort for the interoperability and the compatibility. So we have thoughts at the beginning, for example, to move away from the foundational and intermediate advanced, but decided at the end to fit into that to make it interoperable. We actually have, and you'll see it in the paper, we had actually 11 competency area or 11 domains. And then we managed, and actually through the discussion, it's collapsed again to the 7 of ResearchComp, again, for the benefit of absorbing it, because our intention and our goal within the ECS Academy is to mainstream citizen science, and therefore making it more compatible so it can be integrated into things like MSCA doctoral networks, training for PhD students, and other things is actually what we are wanting it to do in the world. So that's why we both borrowed from existing networks, existing frameworks, which ResearchComp wasn't around at the time, and we make sure that it will be for the main audience, which is researchers and practitioners. As we said, and as Andrea said, there is work to be done to extend it to different communities, research managers among them. I would argue that, for example, research funders will be also important audience within that, and things like that. But that's something down the line. So that's where this thing came from, and it's mostly for the people who will need it most. So the problem that we identify that also someone will need it is the situation that we see now of PhD students being told by their supervisor, create for me a citizen science, but here's your job, you're doing citizen science, go. And you think, this poor person is actually standing there and needs support because they might find that around the university there is no point of support, there is no someone around. So they might find CitSciComp as a starting point of saying, hey, this is what I basically need in order to start my journey into that. So it's really valuable question, and we'll make sure to include those comments within the paper that we're writing that will come out together with the competency framework. Andrea, you wanted to say?
Yes, thank you for these very pertinent questions, Santiago. It's interesting because it can be brought to other actors in citizen science and participatory research. Now, what we could do if we think straight, I mean, we could provide already calculate the cosine similarity and provide an approximation on how it is different and how it is similar. However, once again, and this is something that after all these years working with competency framework, there is a need to bring the community to this job. We can have 78 competency frameworks about a different area done with focus groups, expert-led. Wow, but then once again, will this be used afterwards? Will this actually reflect the reality of the profession, the reality of the field? Not necessarily. So once again, okay, we could do this we could 1 week we could provide how it's different, how it's similar, but still this has to go through once again this community also validation. So this is a work that could be done in the future, for example, but still, could be the easy way, and okay, you have the output, but will this be actually pertinent? I don't know.
No, I think absolutely, and that's we can well, you can provide, because I say we, but I just arrived here. We can provide all these things to our researchers and even to our research, but then we'll have to put the work in and actually kind of test how it works and everything. And kind of building on that, because I think it's something that I keep insisting, at least in kind of my circle of people. Um, in terms of doing citizen science, when people are doing citizen science or they have ideas that are related to citizen science, engage research, any of those things, I think it's really important and really crucial to think about the sort of the rewards and the career advancement, the assessment of research and researchers on that side, because in many cases, it's like, well, citizen science project, well done. You have a smiley face, and you just keep doing your thing, you keep publishing your stuff, and that becomes sort of the side job of people, and that kind of hinders development of real engagement. And the fact that, if you do citizen science, like by default, there is longer time that you need to actually co-create stuff. So the funding times of projects, they might not actually match the reality of the thing. And so the question, again, I talk a lot. So just the question there is, have you thought of how to integrate these kinds of um, frameworks into things like Quora? And then this is something that we are kind of developing at this moment, the Coalition for Research Assessment, in a way in which those actions related to citizen science and open science and everything that's on that same thing gets actually rewarded and taken into account for the career advancement of people. Is it something that you have considered?
We were actually asked to consider it or to make the link with Koara by our project officer. I think we haven't done so completely yet. We do work with the Marie Curie Alumni Association within our project. So we've been promoting citizen science a lot during the conferences of this Marie Curie Alumni Association. So kind of integrating it. We've also worked or done a workshop series to get people that were interested in applying in the postdoctoral fellowship to integrate citizen science, and that was quite successful because a lot of people were very happy from our help of how, because there's the impact section of the postdoctoral fellowship, and so you do get some extra points if you do demonstrate public engagement, and that can be in the form of citizen science. So we're trying to raise awareness in that community, and they're very strong in Koara. So, but to be honest, I haven't been in that field. My knowledge about Koara is quite limited. One thing that I know is the development also of PEP CV, narrative style CV, and I think that can also help develop the evaluation field in the good way, which is also in some ways related to citizen science or to our community, to our field. Yeah, so maybe someone else has some more input about this topic. I also wanted to say in relation to the research manager competency framework, you'll see in some of the advanced or expert levels in each of these competencies, there's a lot of kind of competencies related to supervision or to helping early career researchers. So that, if you are a bit more into that role, then you are in the expert in advanced. So I feel like that's also recognized, that need of support in those levels within our framework. Christine.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for the presentation and for all the work. I'm sorry, I will be a bit the devil. My question is, we have so many documents that we have to look at. There are so many frameworks, so many different, you see what I mean? And since this Citizen Science Comp framework is the agglomeration of others that exist, or at least, you said 31, or a big part is from the European framework, research framework. Could we have something more synthetic, meaning that just the differences, just not repeating everything, but having just where do we make the difference? What are exactly the difference from the other frameworks, instead of re-putting everything again in this document?
That's actually what we've done. So the document that you have there is exactly the differences. So there are very few sub-competency. If you look at the document that I shared earlier, you'll
Yes.
see that there are very, very few sub-competencies that are in italic. Everything else is something that the community has edited, changed, and adapted to do that. So it might not be clear. The competency name, so for example, let's take one example in the slides. We have a competency name that is called sorry, I'll start from competency area because those were indeed copied. So managing research is taken and we didn't change the name of it. But then there is mobilized resources. Okay, and mobilized resources, if you look at the way that it's described in ResearchComp, it actually will be different from what described here because this was adjusted and adapted to reflect citizen science. So the text has been changed. Same things about all the sub-competencies that you see there. So for example, what someone need to have at the foundational level, that was adjusted to citizen science. If it's not in italic and you can see there only the is familiar with key founding. So this is, for example, was copied in the intermediate. You see there is familiar. You see that that's in italic. That means that it was copied word to word from ResearchComp. Everything else is adjusted or been written anew for CitSciComp. Now, we are actually, I'm in the middle of writing a paper that will express that. In addition to that, you see there the column examples. That doesn't exist in ResearchComp. And because we really see it as very important for people to apply their knowledge to see what we actually mean by each bit of it, we also provided that rubric within the table in order to help the navigation. So I'm sorry that it wasn't clear the way we explain it, but indeed that's why, and that's why I noted that in the original ResearchComp there are 39 competencies, of which only 23 ended up within CitSciComp. All the others are living happily within ResearchComp. We're not going to change them. We're not going to adjust them. We're not going to tell anyone. People need to have them as researchers or practitioners in research, and we don't touch them because they are not relevant to citizen science. Does that make more sense?
Yes, I suppose I have to change glass because it is not enough highlighted for me. So I will really like something like stakeholder, I don't know, a policy summary. What are just the points that have been changed? Like when you change an official document and you just have three dots, not changes, and then you have what has been changed or included. I don't know.
Yeah, so as you can see, if you look at the screen, you'll see that 90% of what you're looking at, or 95% of what you're looking at, is changed.
Yes, that's what I say. I need some new glasses.
Yeah, we can actually do a highlighter on that, but I can really, like, if you'll scroll down to other competencies, they are completely, managing research. Like, it was interesting to notice that this one was copied, but for example, if we take area 2, we only copied 2 of them. We didn't copy the others. So what you're looking at is, by and large, new.
In any case, Christina, thank you for the
But
comments.
thank you. It's really
We
helpful. Yeah.
can, I mean, and personally, like in all we do, I mean, with Luba, actually, is not here today. We calculate the cosine similarity actually with different text that has been used already as reference and so on. This can be done implicitly, indeed. As we've done, for example, in the presentation of the new competency leverage AI, for example, which here you have what ResearchComp says, here you have what CitSciComp says, and as part of the article, one of the co-authors actually brought the importance of actually bringing other competency frameworks that the community has done, for example, and sometimes we might have a similarity with that too, even by experience also. So this can be a good way to just provide one slide, one visualization, and yes, this could be indeed done more briefly at the beginning of it. Thank you so much.
I also want to say that Andrea created a game which might make it a bit more easy to access and to understand this framework. So it's not just another document that you have to read and go through, but you can actually bring this game and use with your researchers around you to understand what are your competencies, etc. So hopefully we make this available as well, and it will be on the EXA website to get shipped. There might be a small fee for it, for the printing cost, etc. But so yeah, there is a game to make it more accessible, and we would welcome feedback on this game as well at some point. And also at the beginning, we did ask for the community to give us some competencies frameworks that have been created around this. So I don't know. This is maybe my question to Andrea. Ideally, we do include this. The idea was not to reinvent the wheel or to. So these I think what was already created or what we knew was already created was brought in this competency framework as well. So I also look at Merit. I know that you Mohammed from University of Groningen sent us a framework developed as well in a project around citizen science competencies, and I think so there was this idea of integrating it. Andrea, I don't know if you wanted to add something. Sorry,
No, you did it very, very well. Yes, I
Okay.
mean, as part of, we highlighted the main competency frameworks ratified, but there were also other material that the community brought that also you, Muki, did a preliminary work with the European Citizen Science Project stakeholders also. So yes, but indeed we can make it implicit, as Christina suggested, indeed. I like the idea actually. Thank you.
Please go ahead. I assume your name is not MRVF, but I do not know it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was trying to change the name, but I couldn't. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm a newcomer in citizen science. I have 1.5 years trying to learn, trying to understand first. But I was checking the framework I was checking the framework yesterday, and I was analyzing myself. So I say, if that tool was had been available at the moment I was trying to understand citizen science, I couldn't have found a place to locate myself. So I don't know if you can understand what I mean. So I tend to think there is a level that is before foundational, and at this moment is not considered. So what happened with people like me that somewhere we figure out there was something called citizen science, and that call our attention and say, okay, that sounds interesting. What is it? So I want to learn more. So I was comparing myself today with myself in the past. And I tend to think that it's very important to have something where, I don't know if that would be a level or something like that, but something that can locate newcomers like me. Because at that moment, I was not a foundational. So I would say, oh, so I'm not here, neither here, worse here. So I'm going to find something else to work on. I don't know if you can understand that. So if now I'm trying to apply citizen science, to include citizen science in my research. As a matter of fact, this is when I found citizen science, I said, okay, so this is what I want, this is what I want to do. But I didn't know this exists. Okay, I come from Ecuador, actually. So I didn't know. So where I was learning, I said, yes, this is what I do, this is what I like, so this is what I want to learn, and probably I want to do my research career on this. But that Rocio couldn't work with that framework at the moment. So I think it's very important because this is a wonderful, wonderful tool. I work in education too, so I'm trying to do a proposal in terms of developing a competency framework or something else. So thank you for the methodology. But I think that we can do something else to include people like me all around the world. So that's my first comment. My second comment, when I was checking the levels and checking the activities, and I was trying to relate that with my own experience from my context. So I say, oh, I don't know exactly. It was something about copyright and licenses and things like that. I don't remember exactly the example, the page where I was in. And I thought at the moment I was reading, I said, okay, because that is not in the foundational level. I think that's in the tutoring level. I don't remember it at this moment, but it was say that advise students about licensing and something else. This is not exactly because I can't remember. And say, okay, maybe in the foundational level, I would like, I would have, it has been very useful for me to learn about licensing, copyright, things like that. But this is an example. So I'm trying to analyze my process through research. So since I began studying my PhD, it was 9 years ago, actually. And I said, okay, maybe the Rocio at that moment, I'm talking about 10 years ago. So where I was studying my PhD and things like that. I said, so that Rocio, for that Rocio, it has been very important to know that there is a code, that there is licensing restrictions, that this is something. So we can take all that information for people who are just starting to learn about research. And as I'm now leading a small working group in research with very high profiles in Latin America, Chile and Peru. So, and they are, for example, one of them, she's working in her thesis, in her PhD thesis. The other one is starting the course, and I have been 9 years in PhD, but my work is not on research, so I don't have many publications. I don't have publications, actually, one or two, something like that. I was trying to compare my situation with these two other colleagues that we're working together, and I say, okay, so they can use this framework at this moment because there are a lot of things that they don't understand. And they should understand because there are leading universities in Latin America. There are very high profiles. So I can understand the framework now because I have 9 years of experience in research, because I have 1 year and a half trying to understand citizen science, and I have a lot of questions yet. But probably people who are very high profiles in academia I'm not sure if they would be able to understand things because they don't know. They don't know about things that now seems very basic for me. For example, okay, so there is a code, there is a license, there is something like this, there is something like that. So maybe we can do something for this group where I'm identifying too at that moment. So to make this tool very rich, because the tool is really, really rich. And one more comment, I'm sorry for your time. I don't know if this is useful or not, because I feel identified with this process. And another thing that I was thinking when I was reading the document is that is the structure in terms that, for example, in the description, I'm sorry for not using the exact names, you have things, you have examples, but those examples should be in the column, not in the description. For example, it says something like use this platform, or so. I think it would be very useful if we can separate. So maybe we can check it again and oh, here you have an example because you were recommending platforms. Okay, this should be here in the examples to columns, things like that. So why? Because remember that I'm going to talk about myself. I can understand that because I know that, for example, I know that platform, I know that too, but maybe another person, my colleagues, for example, they wouldn't know that this is a tool they can identify. But if that is in the correct column, that would be easier for them to understand. And my last comment, I'm so sorry. And my last comment that is a question. Are you going to have some kind of interactive tool with this? So maybe the Rosie of 1.5 years ago can choose and analyze herself in order to, declassify with all figures and maybe crossing all the standards. Why? Because as you say, it's not exactly a category. So you can be in different levels in different categories. So a tool would be wonderful. So you can disaggregate even in the functional level in the same category. I imagine. So, okay, so I can do this, but I can't do this, I can't do this. So my question is, am I functional or not? So, but if we have a tool where we can select every single option and then can have a better idea of my own profile, that would be wonderful. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm learning a lot. And I have to say that everything I know about citizen science, mostly everything, probably the 90% is because of you. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much for what you brought. Actually, it's in line also what was brought in the EXA conference workshop that we organized. Actually, first of all, the importance of bringing a curious level for people that are newcomers into citizen science. Now, there is also something to take into account in this framework is that we also possess transferable skills as people that could come, could be newcomers to the citizen science field, but that have worked already extensively before in other areas. Indeed, we can start by this profile card exercise to see. I added a link here, and this profile card was part of the card game that Cléa told us about. Actually, this card game provide different scenarios actually that you can do with your peers, with the people that work in your working group, and see how your aptitudes, skills, competencies could work towards challenges that we are facing in the citizen science field. Having maybe a foundational knowledge in one thing, advanced knowledge on others. So indeed, this is an individual exercise, but also an exercise that could be brought as a collective or a team work, basically. So you could indeed bring this activity to your working group, for example, and then for the question. If I understood it, it's more like the suggestion that we could create a tool for people to actually uh, identify their skills. What was this? I didn't maybe understand the question very well. I don't know if Cléa, would you like to point out
Yeah, sure.
something in the questions?
From what I understood, Rosie, if your name is Rosie, right? Um,
Maria.
Maria. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So the curious level, I think Andrea answered. So ideally, this is, I don't know if we'll have time to include it, but potentially, let's see. Andrea has already been trying to map the competency framework to different resources, and so that's would come from the learning path. So if someone wants to learn about this in the competency framework, then they could have direct link to a resource. But it's also in the examples column that I think can be very helpful for people to come in and to know, okay, I need to learn this, and this is an example of what it means. I think that was your third point, and also for there is this need of raising awareness in your institution around the field of citizen science and bringing people on board. And I feel like that's a whole kind of other topic. But this competency framework, the fact that it's linked to ResearchComp, at least in the EU, helps people promote being like, look, researchers need to know this, and CitSciComp is very much linked to it. So I think this is how you can bring it in your institution as well. But this is a bit more EU focused. So if you're based in Latin America, I think there needs to be an understanding of the policies that are around, or around research, right, and impact. I think these were the 3 points you brought forward, but maybe we missed one.
Totally, thank you.
Okay.
I have one last question, Maria. Do you know, are you in contact with Karen Soacha by any chance? Because she is basically co-leading with other researchers in Latin America. They are actually creating a Latin American network around citizen science
No, but it would be
and
lovely.
participatory
Thank you so
research, but exactly. So do not hesitate to get in touch with her as well in terms of raising awareness. There is a community, a huge community actually, that it's been on its way as well. And she's a I mean, you have already our contacts too. There is the card game, and it would be great to have also your feedback in the questionnaire. The feedback is also open to people outside of the European research research area. So do not hesitate to bring us this, for example, in the first questionnaire, in the usability and clarity of this CitSciComp, all these comments, and because it is about the coherence, the format, and what can we bring to the community to implement it in your work. So for Karen Soacha, yes, there you might have her email. In any case, do not hesitate to get in touch with me, and I could put you in contact. Or Cléa or Muki, we all know her.
Yeah, I've just shared with you the Ibero-American Participatory Science Network. That's the
Thank you.
Karen
Thanks a lot.
she's part of this. And also there is a Brazilian participatory group. And I don't know if there's any other in Latin America. Maybe Muki, do you know of that are shaping up?
This no. Okay.
Yes. So thank you. Best of luck, Maria. Let us know how it goes, and maybe if thanks for the comments about Curious. Hopefully, we can integrate this, and also if we have this academy, so you can find a lot of different courses and resources on there as well, and hopefully that helps newcomers enter the field. But my best regards, and we'll close this meeting, finish the meeting.
No.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias. Bye bye. Cheers.